I knew it! After everyone got tricked by WandaVision's Quicksilver and lack of Mephisto, we all finally figured out who the next big MCU villain is going to be. Kang the motherfucking Conqueror. Go ahead, pat yourself on the back, Marvel fans, you deserve it. So now that we know why a multiverse is so dangerous, we can finally see just what direction the MCU is headed. Something tells me they're going to miss Thanos before this is all over.
Come on in.
At the end of Loki, the mysterious He Who Remains lined out the new problem in the MCU pretty clearly. There was a scientist once upon a time who discovered the existence of alternate universes. At that same time, other versions of himself were also making the same discovery. While some traded information in a friendly manner, many of the others attacked the neighboring timelines, resulting in a giant multiversal conflict. Now that Sylvie has slain He Who Remains, the timeline is splitting and all of these versions of him are on the way. At least one of those versions of him will be Kang the Conqueror, one of the most formidable Avengers villains of all time. As Phase 4 soldiers on, we will likely see Jonathan Majors pop up as several variants leading up to Kang taking Thanos' spot as supervillain number 1.
And that's the gambit!
Not only that, but I'm betting that one other Loki character will be appearing right alongside him when he emerges in the MCU next. The leader of the TVA, Ravonna Renslayer, abandoned her old friends to find the puppet master behind the TVA. She's likely going right into the service of Kang the Conqueror. In the comics, she was Kang's one true love, so there's a good chance she'll be tagging along with him everywhere he goes, like she's the Maria Hill to his Nick Fury. The next Disney Plus show dropping after Loki seems to only exist because of the show right before it. What If is a series that is going to focus on alternate versions of the MCU, like what if Peggy Carter was a super soldier, or what if the Avengers were zombies? As we know, this series wouldn't even be possible if Loki hadn't turned the MCU into a proper multiverse. Before, I really thought What If would just be an entertaining anthology series, but now, I think it might serve as a way to further the Kang storyline. Frankly, I'd be surprised if there weren't at least one version of Kang in the series, if not upwards of a dozen. Who knows? Maybe we'll even see Owen Wilson's Mobius pruning a few of the timelines. I doubt the ones from the Marvel zombie universe would really mind. The new Spidey movie has been drowning in rumors since before it even started shooting. All of these rumors revolve around the idea of the Tom Holland Spidey coming into contact with characters from the last two Spider-Man franchises. We know that Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2 and Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 will both be returning for the new film. Some think that Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, or even Tom Hardy's Venom could show up in the film as well. This isn't all that new for Spider-Man films. The animated classic Into the Spider-Verse already showed this kind of thing playing out, but that's a different story for the MCU. In the world of the MCU, all of this is only possible because of Loki, so, in a way, Loki may just be responsible for the creation of every single non-MCU Marvel movie. Thank you so much for Howard the Duck, Louis Vuitton. The Disney Plus shows have been hyping up Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness pretty hard. WandaVision all but declared that Doctor Strange and the newly proclaimed Scarlet Witch are going to have themselves a big magical duel in the sequel as Wanda tries to save her kids no matter the cost. Loki managed to top that contribution by supplying Doctor Strange 2 with what it needed the most, that mad multiverse. As Strange and Maximoff explore the brand new multiverse, Smart Money says that they will also run into at least one Kang and hopefully a Loki or two on the journey. What If seems like it has a big episode devoted to the many lives of Stephen Strange, so expect that one to drop some hints for the sequel as well. The reason so many people freaked out about Jonathan Majors appearing on the last episode of Loki is because it was already announced that he would be playing Kang the Conqueror for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now this time I really have no idea how the biggest Marvel villain to date could fit into its smallest franchise, but I am very intrigued to find out. In the comics, Kang is the master of the city of Chronopolis, which exists in Limbo, which could be the quantum realm in the MCU. It will be cool to see Chronopolis on the big screen, but I have no earthly idea how Scott Lang is ever going to get out of there alive. As if Chronopolis isn't a new place at all, but one we've already been to. How awesome would it be if Scott shrunk down into the quantum realm and found Owen Wilson waiting for him? It's very possible that the fantastical city outside of time that the TVA is located in has been Chronopolis this entire time. That Kang statue does make it seem likely. At this point, we're making a lot of assumptions about Kang's place in the MCU. Technically, we don't know for certain that he will be an MCU big bad like Thanos. It's a pretty safe assumption considering how big of an Avengers villain he is. The one thing we do know for certain is that he's the big bad of Loki Season 2, if not the entire series. At the end of the season, we see a statue of the same man as He Who Remains, but he was clearly dressed like Kang the Conqueror and not one of his other variants. So Season 2 will see Loki, Sylvie, and Mobius going up against another Marvel villain burdened with glorious purpose. I'm 100% certain that Sylvie will regret plunging that sword into his chest in the finale before everything is done. My guess is that we'll see an epic multiversal showdown where an army of Loki variants goes up against an army of Kang variants. I would say that there's no possible way that the Lokis could possibly take on the Kangs, but the Gods of Mischief do have one secret weapon that I'm not sure anyone could take on. Of course, I'm talking about Alligator Loki, the most powerful and cunning of them all. If there's an alligator, or God forbid a crocodile Kang, we're all doomed. Why hasn't Marvel announced a Young Avengers project yet? There's literally no other Marvel property that the MCU has been hyping up to the degree that they are with the Young Avengers. Cassie Lang, Elijah Bradley, the Maximoff twins, and Kate Bishop all served as members of the team. Not only that, but Loki introduced 2 new members of the team. One of them is the young Loki that we saw in the show's penultimate episode. Lokis are well known for escaping their permanent fate, so there's a solid chance that he'll be suiting up next to the other young guns in the MCU in a TV show or movie soon. What's crazier is the other young Avenger the series set up. That's right, another of the Infinite Kangs is actually a young superhero named Iron Lad, who would give anything to escape becoming the villain. This, of course, leads to Kang the Conqueror becoming one of their first major threats, as he wants to ensure his younger self stays on the right path. I bet the MCU versions will be variants of each other, but expect a Kang versus Little Kang showdown when the Young Avengers finally make their appearance. Kang is arguably just as big a deal for the Fantastic Four as he is for the Avengers. His first appearance wasn't actually as Kang, but as the Pharaoh from the future, Rama-Tut. So far we know absolutely nothing about the Fantastic Four movie, but it's very possible Rama-Tut could be at least one of the villains in the film. Even if he doesn't appear in the MCU debut of Marvel's First Family, they are a big part of his origin. Before he went by any fancy comic book names, Kang was simply known as Nathaniel Richards, generally thought to be a descendant of Reed Richards. The time travel technology that first allows him to start his journey towards conquest was actually created by their arch-nemesis, Dr. Doom. We'll see if his MCU origin keeps his Fantastic Four ties intact. So where could all this Kang business possibly be leading to? For Thanos, all of his scheming throughout the opening phases of the MCU were to get to his most popular Marvel story, the Infinity Gauntlet. Kang's Infinity Gauntlet is arguably the storyline Avengers Forever. While Kang is taking on one of his alternate selves, he assembles a team of Avengers from across the timeline. In the end, Kang and the Avengers was able to take down his future self, Immortus, and the Timekeepers he served. So it's entirely possible that Avengers Forever will be adapted just like Infinity Gauntlet was. We could see Kang pull the likes of Thor, Doctor Strange, Loki, and the rest of the remaining MCU players from random places in the MCU timeline to pull off another time travel plan to save the world. Strangely enough, I think Marvel has already told us exactly how the Kang arc is going to end. When Sylvie decides to plunge her blade into the chest of He Who Remains, he remarks about how likely it is that he'll end up in the exact same spot. This is 100% how I expect the multiversal conflict to come to its grinding halt. It will conclude with Loki and Sylvie leaving the last Kang in his castle to prune the timeline of Kangs once again. Which leads to the terrifying question, has he been in an endless loop of perishing and then returning to the castle over and over again for all eternity? The thing I'm looking forward to the most is just how Majors is going to play each and every iteration of the character. Without a doubt, we'll be discussing which of his performances is the best 5 years from now.